This event took place before Genesis 1, the creation of the sons of God. Genesis chapter 6 verses 1 through 4 in the book of Job captivate many Bible readers because of the mysterious identity of both the sons of God and the Nephilim. In this Bible story from the book of Job, there is a wealthy man named Job residing in an area called Uz with his extended family and vast flocks. He is blameless and upright, always striving to live a moral life. He had a very disciplined relationship with God. Job loses all that he has. The suffering shows too much for Job, and he turns bitter, anxious, and scared. Job wants to face God and protest. Eventually, God steps in. 36 times, Job asked God to speak with him. He has now received his wish. Job chapter 38 verses 4 through 7. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who set its measurements, since you know? Or who stretched the measuring line over it? On what were its bases sunk? Or who laid its cornerstone when the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy? We read, when the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. It is revealed that angelic beings, referred to as morning stars and sons of God, witnessed the creation of the earth and celebrated the glory, power, and wisdom of God involved in the process. Fallen angels are rarely mentioned in the Bible, since the vast majority of angels in heaven have never fallen from grace and gone to the dark side. Some, however, chose to do so. The fallen angels did not keep their beginning, which means they did not follow the path that they were created on. The angels were created to be in heaven with God, praising Him and doing His bidding. They, like humans, were created to glorify Him, but humans were created to live on earth, not angels. Nonetheless, these angels left their beginning, or their starting point, in heaven. They chose to reject God's plan for their lives by exercising their free will. According to the Bible, these angels are fallen angels because they left heaven. What happened to these angels? According to the Bible, 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 4. For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell and committed them to pits of darkness, held for judgment. The leader of these angels is Satan, who transforms himself to an angel of light. The devil plotted against God, his maker, and he and the angels who followed him lost the battle. What happens after the fallen angels leave heaven? According to Matthew chapter 25 verse 41, the everlasting fire, hell, was prepared for the devil and his angels. In other words, hell was never intended for a single person, though Judas and others will undoubtedly end up there. In the end, Satan and the fallen angels were the intended recipients of hell. Hell was created in heaven as a final punishment for the leaders of the Great Rebellion, but the Lord allows others in the nations He judges to go there as well, because of choice, free will, and man's God-given responsibility to choose his eternal destination, whether heaven or hell. And it is hell that Satan and the fallen angels, the 1/3 of those who rebelled alongside him, will go to at the end of all things. God will exact His wrath on those who have rebelled against Him, and Satan and the fallen angels will not escape unscathed. We've seen here that fallen angels exist, even though fallen from grace is a difficult concept for some of us to grasp. We'd like to believe that angels can't fall, but biblical history proves otherwise. The fallen angels are known to be 1/3 of the angelic host that follows Satan in the Great Rebellion and attempts to overthrow God and His throne and reign to take over heaven. We also know that the attempt was a colossal failure and that Satan and his rebellious angels were expelled from heaven. Some fallen angels, who are now in hell, and others who are on earth, go their separate ways. According to Genesis 6, fallen angels intermarry with humans and bear giant children by human women. Genesis chapter 6 verses 1 through 4. Now it happened, when men began to multiply in the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful and desirable. And they took wives for themselves, whomever they chose and desired. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive and remain with man forever, because he is indeed flesh, sinful, corrupt, given over to sensual appetites. Nevertheless, his days shall yet be 120 years. There were Nephilim, men of stature, notorious men, on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God lived with the daughters of men, and they gave birth to their children. These were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown, great reputation, fame. The Bible says, And they took wives for themselves of all whom they chose. We can deduce why Satan sent his angels to intermarry with human women, directly or indirectly. Satan attempted to pollute mankind's genetic pool with satanic corruption, planting something resembling a genetic pathogen in order to render the human race unfit to bear the seed of the woman, the Messiah, promised in Genesis chapter 3 verse 15. But who were these sons of God? Both pre-Christian Judaism and the early church held that the sons of God were spirit beings or angels who took human wives and gave birth to giants known as the Nephilim. The three main perspectives on the identity of God's sons are as follows. Number 1, they were fallen angels. Second, they were powerful human rulers. Or third, they were godly descendants of Seth, intermarrying with wicked descendants of Cain. The traditional belief is that the sons of God were supernatural beings who had children with human women, resulting in the Nephilim. Here are the reasons supporting this view. The fact that the phrase sons of God always refers to angels in the Old Testament lends support. Job chapter 1 verse 6. Now there was a day when the sons of God, angels, came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan, adversary, accuser, also came among them. Job chapter 2 verse 1. Again, there was a day when the sons of God, angels, came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan, adversary, accuser, also came among them to present himself before the Lord. Job chapter 38 verse 7. When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God, angels, shouted for joy. In all three cases, the sons of God are spirit angelic beings, including Satan. The phrase's use in Job suggests that Genesis 6 is referring to spirits, angels. Genesis chapter 6 verses 1 through 2 contrasts the sons of God with man, implying that these are non-human beings. Genesis chapter 6 verse 1 says that man began to multiply, and daughters were born to them. The Hebrew word for man is the generic term for mankind, as used in Genesis chapter 5 verses 1 through 2. The sons of God are contrasted with man. Thus, the sons of God were distinct from man and married all mankind's daughters. As a result, the sons of God must be non-human beings of some kind. The context implies that the Nephilim were the resulting offspring of spirit beings and humans. The Nephilim, or fallen ones in Genesis chapter 6 verse 4, are mysterious personalities, the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. The text does not explain how the Nephilim arrived. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward when the sons of God came into the daughters of man and bore children to them. It simply states. But why are the Nephilim mentioned in Genesis 6 alongside the intermarriage of the sons of God and daughters of man? It is unclear how these mighty men of renown came about, if they were not the outcome of intermarriage between spirit beings and humans. Jude likely understands Genesis chapter 6 1 through 4 to refer to the intermarriage between spirit beings and humans. Jude 6 tells of angels who did not stay within their position of authority, but left their proper dwelling. Unless Jude is referring to an unknown event, he appears to be referring to the angels who left heaven to live on earth in Genesis chapter 6 verses 1 through 4. These arguments support the traditional view that the sons of God mated with human women and gave birth to the Nephilim. Though this may appear strange to modern ears, the same could be said for the entire Bible. Truth is stranger than fiction, and the world God has created is far from what we commonly believe. The sons of God saw the daughters of men. It is more accurate to see the sons of God as either demons, angels in rebellion against God, or uniquely demon-possessed men, and the daughters of men as human women. Jude 6. And angels who did not keep their own designated place of power, but abandoned their proper dwelling place, these he has kept in eternal chains under the thick gloom of utter darkness for the judgment of the great day. Jude 6 also explains what God did with these evil angels. 1 Peter chapter 3 verses 19 through 20 informs us Jesus proclaimed his victory on the cross over them. 1 Peter chapter 3 verses 19 through 20, in which he also went and preached to the spirits now in prison, who once were disobedient, when the great patience of God was waiting in the days of Noah, during the building of the ark, in which a few, that is, 8 persons, Noah's family, were brought safely through the water. As can be seen, Satan is much more than a red figure with horns and a pitchfork. He is an ancient being with real spiritual power, which he uses for evil and selfish ends. He is particularly hostile to Christians and seeks their annihilation. So here are 3 crucial truths to keep in mind as we navigate that spiritual reality. It is a grave error to regard God and the devil as polar opposites. This gives Satan far more credit than he deserves. The power disparity between God and Satan is that of an infinite creator and his work. No matter how cunning, crafty, or powerful Satan becomes in his rebellion against God, he will never be able to match the power of the one who created him. Simply put, no angelic being, whether fallen or righteous, can compete with Jesus' power and might. On the other hand, underestimating Satan's power is a similarly dangerous mistake. He is not stronger than God, but he is stronger than you. For millennia, Satan has concocted dark and wicked schemes. He's a skilled liar and manipulator, with power unrivaled by any mortal human. But while we should be wary of Satan, we do not need to fear him. We don't even know what his real name is. That, I believe, is by design. It's a subtle hint that he's not even a big enough threat to God to warrant knowing his name. Satan's defeat was foretold from the beginning. We can see the end from the beginning in the first chapters of Genesis. God declares the serpent defeated, even after he successfully leads Adam and Eve astray. Here is what God has to say to the serpent. And we see this promise fulfilled in Jesus' sacrifice. Despite being dealt a fatal blow, Jesus crushed the serpent's head as he gave up his spirit. And we eagerly await the day when this promise will be fully realized. Stay prepared for spiritual warfare. Many of us raised in modern times are frequently blinded to spiritual realities and unseen forces at work. We learned about them from books. We talk about them. However, few of us actually participate in them. In doing so, we may expose ourselves to spiritual attack. The quickest way to lose a battle is to be unaware that you are engaged in one. Jesus' power is far more than words on a page and hope for after we die. Every day, spiritual battles rage all around us. If we are to be effective spiritual warriors, we must lean into prayer, tune our hearts to the very real presence of God, and cultivate discernment as we seek to do our Father's work. Our adversary is formidable, but our God is even more so. A spiritual war is going on right now that affects everyone on the planet. It is a clash between two kingdoms. One kingdom is led by Almighty God, the Prince of Peace, while the other is led by Satan, the Prince of the power of darkness. A spirit world surrounds us, far more populous, powerful, and resourceful than our own visible world of human beings. Spirits, both good and evil, make their way through our midst. They move from place to place with lightning speed and silence. They live in the airspaces around us. Some we know care about our well-being, while others are out to get us. There are two kingdoms, one for God and one for his great adversary, Satan. One represents good, while the other represents evil. One represents light, while the other represents darkness. One represents blessings, and the other represents curses. One represents life, while the other represents death. These two antagonistic kingdoms cannot coexist. They are at odds. When did this spiritual conflict begin? What were the root causes? After being expelled from the third heaven, Satan and his followers pledged themselves to each other and formed the rebel kingdom, which still exists today and will continue to exist until it is destroyed by God's ultimate power. Paul warned us to keep our primary goal in mind so that we can stand against the wiles of the devil and not turn against one another. He emphasized that our adversary is not flesh and blood,